All right, well, first of all, thanks everybody for being here. I think the senator will tell you in more detail, but I think this was an important piece of legislation. This was a priority of the governor's office. I know with a lot of legislators are here that helped with this. I was in St. Louis earlier today talking about this very bill. I think one thing to just turn the clock back a little bit, we need to go back to the days in this state when we didn't have product to be able to fight a crisis, a pandemic in this state, when we were looking for things called gowns and masks, all the way down to swabs that we didn't. And a lot of people stepped up. Over 200 businesses in this state retooled their companies to be able to help us at a time, frankly, of one of our, probably I would say, most dramatic emergencies we've had that I could remember in a long time. And I want people to sure understand this is to protect those businesses. The last thing we need to do is punish anybody for trying to help in the middle of a crisis or pandemic. And I will just, my hat's off to all those companies that were willing to do that and make Missourians safe and to do the best they could to keep people on the front lines, which they did. And we continue to be proud of that. I will say this, I hope people in this state remember those companies that changed everything to help them. I hope they remember to do business with them. I hope it shows you how important businesses are in this state versus overseas and why we need to take care of our local businesses. And I hope people remember that as good. So that being said, Senator, thank you for all the work you've done on this, because I know this has been a little bit of an ordeal to get it through the legislative process. So let me turn it over to you, and thank you for doing this.
Thank you, Governor. It's always an ordeal to get a bill through the General Assembly. First of all, Governor, I want to thank you for your leadership on this. You said back in February during the State of the State that this was one of your key priorities. You made sure that the legislature was very focused on this issue, and we were able to actually pass this meaningful tort reform bill very early in the legislative session. And so tremendous amounts of credit go to you, and so thank you for your leadership on this.
Thank you.
I also want to thank the business community. We have a lot of representatives here from the business community today. Dan Meehan from the Chamber and so many other different industry associations and groups who came together to make sure that this legislation was a priority. You know, I really think about 4 different groups being protected whenever I think about the COVID liability bill. One, of course, is one that the governor focused on, which is our small businesses, which are the backbone of our economy here in Missouri, making sure that those businesses are protected from frivolous lawsuits, making sure that they feel comfortable and confident reopening our economy and getting people back to work. That's so critically important. And of course, we've seen a surge in the virus recently, and so I actually think this legislation is going to become even more meaningful in the future. I hope that's not the case, but if it is, I know that the state is well primed to make sure that we keep our economy running and people employed. The second group are schools. I talked to a lot of superintendents, a lot of different school administrators. One of the things that was driving decision-making around the state to not reopen schools was the fact of the possibility of liability. And let me just tell you, I think we all learned during this pandemic that where kids need to be is in the classroom. And so I think this bill is going to be critical in making sure that as we start a new school year, that those schools remain open and the kids are continued to learn in person, which we know is the best way for them to learn. And then, of course, our frontline healthcare workers, our healthcare heroes as they became known during the course of the pandemic, our doctors, our nurses, people who left their families and worked extremely long hours to keep people safe and healthy during this pandemic. They're also fearful of lawsuits. Hospitals are fearful of lawsuits. Making sure that we protect those people who are doing their best to keep us safe, while at the same time striking that balance and making sure that we hold bad actors accountable. And this bill really does those things. It holds bad actors accountable, but those companies that are really just trying to do their best, those entities, they're protected. And then lastly, our religious institutions. We saw churches around the state being shuttered, people's First Amendment religious liberties being trampled upon. And one of the critical components of this bill is we offered very good protections for religious institutions to make sure that churches are able to stay open and that houses of worship are available to people who are believers in the state. And so, again, I want to thank the governor. I want to thank the business community for making this a huge priority. And it was a pleasure and a privilege to carry the bill.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Senator. That was a pretty good job explaining that. I didn't know whether it was going down the filibuster route or whether it was going to explain the bill. But I'm going to say you stayed right on point. There was a lot of key points in there, and I think just kind of before I sign this last 17 months has affected everyone in the state. from whatever aspect, whether it was people that was working in grocery stores, convenience stores, I mean, you just go through it. You know, our religious freedom, as the senator mentioned, but just everybody, every aspect has been affected by this. And the good news is we've kind of hung together in this state. We're trying to get through it, still continue to have our ups and downs with it, but fortunately, we're much better off in this state than the vast majority of the states in the United States. So I'm proud of that, and I'm proud to be able to sign that. So with that, Senator, let's make this official. All right, there's the real deal.
Any other legislators, feel free to move up to the desk for some photos with the governor. Can we ask a quick question of Senator Lukemeyer while you're signing, Governor?
Yeah. If it's an easy one, he said he would answer them.
Yeah, if it's a hard one, I'm going to defer.
Senator, you mentioned small businesses, and one of the things that was confusing during this all the way along was, yes, you have protection for the business from the potential employee who might want to sue, or as long as the business follows all the guidelines, sets everything up correctly, that business is protected. The other thing about businesses is consumers. I walk into a consumer business without COVID, I walk out, I think I have COVID, I want to blame that business and sue that business. This bill deals with that situation.
Yes, this bill covers both consumer actions as well as actions of employees. So anybody who would be on the premises of a business would be covered by this legislation.
The consumer's right to sue is not abridged by this legislation.
The consumer's right to sue would be subject to the same restrictions as an employee's right to sue. So those protections apply equally across the board.
I have a question for you, Governor Parson, and for you.
I think I'm going to be speaking to the press here. Yeah, we'll be there. We'll be there to answer you guys' questions. But if you got another one, maybe another one. What's that?
Anyone else?
All right. So if you've got a question, Tony, you guys can answer him one real quick, or he can probably be available afterwards too. So if you got one, all right, because I'll be out there afterwards, and we'll stand up and take some questions.
Yeah.
Put Sam and I next to each other.
All right. That one's yours there. Sam, I'm going to put you in charge of handing them out. Make sure everybody's got one. We'll make sure everybody gets one. Well, this line over here is longer on this side. Do you, Sam? Whatever. You got one? Yeah. Just tell me how many you need, Tony. What you need? All right. All right. Thanks, everybody. Tony, thank you. Good job. Appreciate it. Appreciate it.
Thanks. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Yes.
Appreciate being here. Sam, I was going to say, Representative, good. Appreciate your work.
Big deal.